Knowledge is power. Information is liberating. Education is the premises of progress in every society and in every family. This is a quote from Kofi Annan, a Ghanaian diplomat. The quote means that the more knowledgeable the people are, the better the society or the community will be. This is proven because of the past revolutions and the eras that we had, and we also the progress of the human civilization. From hunting and gathering of people about 12,000 years ago, to horticultural and pastoral societies, to the Neolithic age, where the rise of agriculture is one of the major changes in this era, to the Industrial Revolution and the Post-Industrial Revolution. We had a lot of changes in these few eras, but we still continue to change because a person learns something new every day. The development of culture through time is called cultural evolution, which led to the transformation of different societies and political systems, which is known as the socio-political evolution. In this video lesson, we'll learn about hunting and gathering societies developed to become agricultural, industrial, and then post-industrial societies. As a response to the challenges of the environment, societies produce new forms of subsistence, new ways of living, acquire more knowledge, develop different ways of innovation, and apply new forms of technology. Gerhard Lansky, an American sociologist, stated that human society undergoes transformation and evolution and, in the process, develops technological advancements called socio-cultural evolution. The development of technology and the information acquired by humans on how to apply societal resources as a response to human needs and wants leads to the evolution of the society. Now, we differentiate the main types of societies from the past few eras. Let us first start with the Neolithic evolution, to be reported by Nigel and Loris.
Before I start explaining, let me give first some background information before the Neolithic Revolution starts. Prehistory is divided into two major stages, the Stone Age and the Age of Metals. Before Neolithic Revolution, people lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers. They have no fixed habitat since they go around to search for food. Furthermore, their culture demonstrates an egalitarian society in which they all have similar jobs. Humans have made their living solely by hunting and gathering. Animals hunted are not only for the source of food, but also for clothing and enhancing, and making more improved weapons, such as knives, spears, and many more. They have continued hunting and gathering until they have settled down in one location, around 9000 BC. This was the start of the transition of human cultures from hunting and gathering to farming and domesticating animals. Agriculture caused such a transformation in society and the way people lived. Its development has been called the Neolithic Revolution. The Neolithic Revolution is best known as the Agricultural Revolution, which marked the beginning of the civilization. This is the period when humans started to practice farming. They began to produce, discover, and develop land to grow food. Nomadic hunter-gatherers started to discover that seeds could be planted so crops could grow. Seeds are cultivated such as wheat, lentils, chickpeas, peas, and flax.
The term Neolithic refers to the new stone, the last stage of the Stone Age. This is why Neolithic stones are much more elaborate than Paleolithic stones. They developed and used a variety of stone tools, sickles or curve-cutting knives made of flint, and axes or hammers made of polished stones. These were the tools made and used by humans at this period. During the Paleolithic era, tools were created by hitting two stones together. But now, in the Neolithic era, they are created through grinding and polishing, meaning they were more refined, durable, and sharper. Here are some of the important tools that were invented and used during the Neolithic Revolution. First, handmill. A handmill is one of the most important tools which is used for grinding grains or cereals into flour. Second, axes. Axes are shaped through flacking. It uses a process that involves chipping the stones until you achieve the desired size and design. It is used for chopping firewood and building houses. And lastly, scraper. Scrapers have a long, slightly curved edge, which are used for scraping meat out of the animals and sometimes used for creating clothes. As the community grows and people settle on lands, they begin to find ways to store their food. Clay pots and jars are made to hold water, foods, and crops, for instance, grains. As their human population rose, they began to experiment and start domesticating animals. When used as labor, domesticated animals helped making more productive farming possible and gave additional nourishment in the forms of milk and meat. The first farm animals included sheep, goats, cattle, oxen, donkeys, and pigs bred from wild boars. When they began to grow more flax, people eventually learned how to make it into the cloth known as linen. This is the start of humans using linen for clothing and no longer animal skin. They also invented the loom, which is used for weaving clothes and tapestry. Weaving is one of the skills that people discovered during the Neolithic Revolution.
Catalhuyuk in Anatolia is an example of early Neolithic town food generated through agriculture, including wheat and barley cultivation and animal breeding. Art and spirituality are greatly treasured by the locals. Burying their dead beneath the flashboards of their homes is one of their traditions and rituals. Murals portraying men hunting, cattle, and female goddesses adorn the walls of the homes. Many farming settlements, such as Wangho Valley, near the Yellow River, existed in China approximately 5000 BC. They have discovered that it is much better to farm near a source of water, such as rivers. They have developed more vegetables, such as peas, beans, cucumbers, and gourds. And up until 2300 BC, cultural evolution during the Neolithic Revolution continues to arise in different countries in Middle East, Asia, India, Egypt, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Southern France, North America, Portugal, Spain, Mexico, and many more.
As the population rises, there have been many developments in terms of traditions and practices during the Neolithic Revolution. People started to trade goods and items from countries near them. As a result, people shared products and ideas to help other communities evolve. Trade expands rapidly and the economy grew. As the population began to grow bigger, they began to develop and form cities with many residents. Each resident has a particular role that greatly affects the growth of the city. Because of the development, the city obtained valuable assets that caught the eye of other groups, which caused or started a war. When resources were limited, wars in each village escalated. During the course of a conflict between cities, certain men rose to the rank of renowned warriors. A class of professional fighters gradually emerged, tasked to guard the villages, while the farmers and shepherds were out in the fields or farms. Due to the constant war between territories, they began to appoint leaders who would supervise them for peace and order to be fully and properly enforced, and for the proper management and distribution of food to each resident. Now that we have already understood the cultural and socio-political evolution of the Neolithic Revolution, we can now move on to the next topic about industrial, post-industrial, and early civilization and the rise of the state that will be discussed by Danina and Alice.
The Industrial Revolution is defined to maximize the use of technological advancements, having mass productions with a large population and a dividing of labor. It began in the mid-18th century England when British manufacturers began to look for new ways to increase the production of their products in their respective factories. It is by harnessing the power of natural elements like water or steam that manufacturers were able to increase the speed of production with the use of machines driven by the elements but are still operated by human hands. This created a wealth of new jobs in areas of manufacturing. Sociologists believe that in industrial societies, all other aspects of society, like education, politics, media, and law, among others, work to support the production goals of that society. An industrialized society is considered to be modern society, or it can be defined as people living together in current time. Modern society is often called materialistic, where people no longer produce product for the living. Instead, they produce goods to sell in the market.
Let us now talk about the post-industrial revolution. It is the stage in society's evolution when the economy shifts from producing and providing products and goods to one that mainly offers services. In a post-industrial society, technology, information, and services are more important than producing actual products. Daniel Bell, a sociologist, made use of the term post-industrial in his book The Coming of Post-Industrial Society, a venture in social forecasting. He described post-industrial societies as first, when production of goods goes down and the production of services like restaurants go up. Second, when manual labor jobs and blue-collar jobs are replaced with technical and professional jobs. Third, when the society experiences a shift from focusing on practical knowledge to theoretical knowledge. This involves the creation of new inventions and solutions. Fourth, when there is a focus on the new technologies developed, how to create and utilize them. Fifth, when new technologies need new scientific approaches like information technology and cybersecurity. And lastly, when the society needs more college graduates with advanced knowledge who can help develop and advance technological change.
Now, let us move on to the early civilization and the rise of state. The term civilization refers to a complex society that produces agricultural surpluses, allowing the development of specialized labor, social hierarchy, and the formation of cities. Writing, complex religious systems, monumental architecture, and centralized political power have all been proposed as known traits of civilization. The first civilizations emerged in major river valleys, where floodplains supplied rich soil and rivers provided irrigation for crops and transportation. Foundational civilizations developed urbanization and complexity without outside influence. Many later civilizations either borrowed elements of, built on, or absorbed other civilizations through conquest. Cities were the center of all early civilizations. People from all throughout the country flocked to cities to live, work, and trade. This means that big groups of people who had never met before lived and interacted with one another. As a result, shared institutions like government, religion, and language helped to foster unity while also allowing for more specialized roles like bureaucrats, priests, scribes to emerge.
Political and religious organizations both contributed to the formation and reinforcement of social hierarchies, which are clear distinctions in rank between individuals and groups. Political leaders have the power to make decisions that have far-reaching consequences, such as whether or not to go to war. Religious leaders obtained particular importance because they were the only ones who could contact a society's god or gods. Civilization is a difficult notion to grasp for a variety of reasons. For one thing, defining what constitutes a civilization and what does not can be challenging, because experts disagree on what constitutes a civilization. People living in the Niger River Valley in West Africa, for example, achieve agricultural surplus, urbanization, and some labor specialization, but they never developed strong social hierarchies, political structures, or written language, prompting debate among scholars about whether they should be classified as a civilization. It can sometimes be difficult to draw a line between one civilization and another due to the substantial cultural interchange and technological dispersion. In various parts of the world, including the valleys of the Tigris-Euphrates, Nile, Indus, and Wang rivers, larger and denser settlements began to emerge. These large concentrations of people are referred to as complex societies or civilizations, which share many features, including having a dense population, an agriculture-based economy, a social hierarchy, a division of labor and specialization, a centralized government, monuments, record-keeping and writing, and complex systems of belief. The production of goods using advanced sources of energy to drive large machinery, water power, and then steam boilers to operate mills and factories filled with large machines.
The post-industrial society is at the heart of globalization. The process was conditioned by deep technological shifts and, according to most specialists, began in the 1950s to 1960s due to the gradual unfolding of the computer revolution. It resulted in the appearance of small and cheap machines for data processing, including personal computers. Some people believe civilization is a more evolved stage in human cultural evolution. When historians or anthropologists use the term civilization, they are referring to a society that is made up of many parts, rather than seeing different types of social organization as completely distinct models. It's more useful to consider them as a spectrum of complexity. Now that we have already understood the cultural and socio-political evolution of the industrial and post-industrial revolutions, with the understanding of early civilizations, we can now move on to the next topic about political revolution involving democratization that will be discussed by Princess and Jude.
Let me first identify and define political evolution. The political systems of civilizations have a highly centralized and well-organized form of government. Political systems of the early civilizations had a clear hierarchy of officials with specific functions and responsibilities. They also had codified laws and rules that were followed by the people. Political evolution is an aspect of phylogeny. It involves the invention, elaboration, and diffusion of novel political forms of all kinds, only some of which may be more effective, inclusive, democratic, etc. Nor are all evolutionary changes necessarily better, for example, more adaptive. One aspect of political evolution is democratization. But what is it?
Democracy, in ancient Greece, served as one of the first forms of self-rule government in the ancient world. The system and ideas employed by the ancient Greeks had profound influences on how democracy developed and its impact on the formation of the United States government. The ancient Greeks were the first to create a democracy. The word democracy comes from two Greek words that means people, demos, and rule, kratos. Democracy is the idea that the citizens of a country should have an active role in the government of their country and manage it directly or through elected people or representatives. In addition, it supports the idea that the people can replace their government through peaceful transfers of power rather than violent uprising or revolutions. Thus, a key part of democracy is that the people have a voice.
Democratization is a process through which a political regime becomes democratic. The explosive spread of democracy around the world beginning in the mid-20th century radically transformed the international political landscape from one in which democracies were the exception to one in which they were the rule. The transition to a more democratic political system, often known as democratization, entails real political reforms that move into a more democratic direction. The outcome may be consolidated or democratization may face frequent rehearsals. Among the various given definitions of democracy, perhaps the most refined and widely disseminated conceptualization of democracy is what is presented by Robert A. Dahl. First, Dahl limits the scope of his concept of democracy to a description of the fundamental principle of a political regime. According to him, the degree of democracy is formally defined based on two measurable factors, namely the degree of having a political equality among its people and the degree of having political freedom. Emphasis is placed on free and fair elections as one opportunity in which the various civil liberties and political rights which represent components of the two above-mentioned factors are tested. In addition, the manner in which elections are held contributes to the overall evaluation whether a given regime is democratic or not. If we accept this, or similar definition of democracy, then the goal of democratization is the establishment of free and fair elections, and democratization can be considered as the process by which the civil liberties and political rights necessary to achieve this goal are realized and maintained.
Democratization is difficult to define because of the disagreements on how to understand democracy. One approach defines democratization as the period between the breakdown of an authoritarian regime and the conclusion of the first democratic national elections. Others see earlier beginning points, such as the initiation of the liberal reforms by authoritarian regimes or structural changes that weakens them, for opposition groups to push for democratic reforms. Some democratic theories similarly assert that democratization continues long after the first elections, because, by themselves, elections do not ensure a functioning democracy. The problem with this approach is that it is not clear when the democratization process stops. If measured against the ideal of a perfect liberal democracy, all countries may be viewed as perpetually being in a process of democratization. This limits the utility of democratization as an analytical tool.
Democracy is widely known in many countries until today, and they use this political system for the fairness of both the people and the government. It is one of the oldest political systems that has even survived up to this date. We are also in the fourth stage of Industrial Revolution, which focuses on cyber-physical systems, which includes AI advancements and robotics. As we all know, in the near future, our era could change because of the never-ending knowledge that we can gather. Even the smartest people in the past eras can't really compete with the technological advancements. It's also the same for us as well. We will discover more and more things that make our life easier, that will be used for the future generations and eras to come.
I am Danina Arwen Ariola.
I am Alessandra Mariela M. David.
I am Laurice Angelan H. Minima.
I am Princess Grace Palatao.
I am Nigel Gil Season.
And I am Jude Angelo Aquino. Thank you for listening.